Grand Springs friends, it's delighting. Is that a word? I am delighted to see all of you for our first fireside chat. Here is a fireside brought to you by Grant Springs Church. Isn't that amazing? It says over the mantle, and I didn't notice this right away. It says over the mantle, listen to the spring of life. And Jesus is the spring of life. In Grant Springs Church, granite comes from the rocks in our neighborhood, and springs comes from the Holy Spirit. That is a spring of life that God gives us by His Holy Spirit. And so this wise fireside says, listen to the spring of life. There's one more kind of arts and crafts thing I want to begin with, if I may, and I get to. It's so great to see everybody. I wish we could all be together in the same room. I miss that so much. And I know many of you do too. This is from my friend Harper Lingle, and I don't know if you can see that, but she took my name and said, Kevin Adams is amazing. Makes you want to be a pastor, doesn't it? But I think that is for the whole church. The whole church, Grant Springs Church, is amazing. And then she put on the inside, and I love what she did here. She put Kevin Adams. Again, I would say the whole Grant Springs Church. Grant Springs Church is awesome, spelled the way awesome should be spelled, O-S-U-M. Grant Springs Church is awesome. Friends, we are delighted that you're joining in. I'd like to give some updates about Grant Springs Church. It feels like it's been a while since we've seen each other. So let me give some updates first. Before I do that, let me give a shout out to Matt Timms. And Matt has done a great job setting this up. I have no technical savvy at all, none. And so if anything goes wrong, it's me. But if it all goes smooth today, it's Matt. And in advance, I want to say a big thanks to him. And a big thanks to all our staff. Some of you know I was on the board of trustees of a seminary for a while. And while I was on this board of trustees, we would get reports that we were going to have not only in-residence students, but we were going to have distance learning students as well. And the plan was 3 years out. And then the next year, the plan was 2 years out. The next year, the plan was 1 year out. And finally, after 5 years of planning and 3 years of implementing, we had distance learning students, online students, along with in-residence students. Well, guess what? At Grant Springs Church and in many churches around the country, we didn't have 3 years to implement this. We had, maybe it felt like 3 days. Yeah, it might have been 3 weeks, but it was not long we had to do this. And I'm just so proud of our gang for bringing youth online. Good job, Q, for bringing children's ministry online. Amazing job, Marissa. I don't know if you've seen her story from her boat yet, but it's pretty cool. And pastoral care online, the whole group of folks calling folks and taking care of folks. Giving has become more and more online. And of course, a special shout out to Aaron and Jelaine and their family. Aaron's done so much hard work to bring worship online. That's been such a gift to all of us. I'm still getting used to watching worship and eating cinnamon rolls at the same time. And I hope that's not something I have to get used to permanently, but it's been amazing what they've done to bring everything online. So a big thanks to the whole staff for doing that. Also a big thanks for the way people are being connected and connecting with folks. Small group leaders, a special thanks to them for the way they're still leading their small groups online and the way they're connecting to the small group people online. Special thanks to deacons who are calling folks and former deacons. I think of Joan Curry and some others who are calling folks, just checking in. And people who just have folks come to mind and they send a quick email or they make a quick phone call, or on Sunday morning, they say, passing the peace of Christ be with you. And maybe that's a good thing to say right now. The peace of Christ be with you, friends. And we can respond and also with you. It's been a delight to see the way community thrives, even when the building is closed, and the building has been closed for 2 months now. That community is never closed and community is still going on. So a big thanks to staff for all their work. A big thanks to so many of you for reaching out. We have a COVID response team, and that COVID response team has done some wonderful things. Like there's folks in church who couldn't figure out how to work their technology, and we had someone go to their house in a safe way and help them with their technology. We had other people who couldn't buy groceries, and folks went and purchased groceries for them. We had a diaper drive just this past Monday, and we had a carload of diapers and gift cards and um, gas cards and other to local Lincoln ministry. That's been super wonderful. And watching folks care for each other, watching folks reach out to each other in simple and small ways has been a beautiful thing. I think of Jesus, who said, "If any of you give so much as a cup of cold water in my name, you will be rewarded." And then watching folks buy diapers and give them away to people they've never met. There's also a group from church that are going to fix a meal for guardsmen, National Guardsmen who are away from their family, and our church is going to fix them a meal on Thursday night. So just the story after story after story, it's been really amazing to see how people have been living their faith in a time like this. So special thanks to all those who've made so much online ministry happen and also in-person ministry happen. We're grateful for you all. And I think some of you have heard me tell the story. Some folks got their stimulus check and they looked at it and said, "I think there are people in the world and maybe people in my neighborhood who need it more than I do." And they gave their stimulus check or part of their stimulus check away to a food bank, and in some cases to Granite Springs Benevolence Fund, which goes to families inside the church that need special help and special attention and special coming alongside them at this point in time. And it's amazing what folks have done that. Another thing folks have asked me about is giving. And I'm here to say Granite Springs is an amazingly generous church. I mean, you guys are really generous. Through April, our giving was right at as normal. It's right where we budgeted, which is an amazing kind of thing. Through April, there's been lots of years where there's not been COVID or a pandemic, and we struggle those first few months, and then we play catch up at the end, and we make it always. But this first 4 months through April, giving is right on target. Now in May, it's changed a little bit. It's down about 20% for the month of May. But again, that's early on, and these things fluctuate week to week. So the big message there is a hearty thank you for all of those of you who are able to be generous still and are taking the time and making the effort to be generous still. So a big thanks to Granite Springs Church for living their faith as we think about so many practical cup of cold water ways and being in generous ways and coming alongside folks ways as well. I'd like to talk a little bit about some steps we've taken to keep Granite Springs not only healthy, but flourishing in these days and weeks of COVID. One of the things we've done, I was just talking about giving on one side. On the other side, we've done our best to reduce our financial footprint, to cut back on the budget where we can. So Amy Lingle, who's amazing, who works in our front office. Many of you know her. She is just the best person you can imagine doing that kind of stuff. She does great work. She just worked really hard to get a new copy machine contract. Now that seems like not very exciting thing to get, but what that did was we got better quality for less money. And that's one of those ways to reduce footprint, of course, in terms of janitorial service, in terms of garbage service, in terms of utilities. There's money being saved there. And we just want you to know that there's been a lot of care and a lot of watchfulness about that. Another thing that's happened is the staff was supposed to get a 5% raise in March. And just with COVID coming on, that was delayed indefinitely. And we hope to get back to it at some point. But the staff understood this and was willing to say, hey, we'll forego that as a way to say we've got to tighten our belt and get ready for whatever's ahead for COVID. So some ways for folks to really take healthy steps. Another thing we've been trying to do during this season of pandemic and during the season of shifting so much of our ministry online, what we've been trying to do is say, what are those things we can do that build into the life of the church? In other words, we don't want to just say, how do we survive? But what we want to say is, how do we thrive? How do we go forward at a time like this. And one of the ways to go forward is to say, of all the things we could be doing right now, what are the things that build into the life of the church in deep and significant ways? So think about this daily prayer with Matt and with Q every day except Sunday. There's a daily prayer in the morning at 9 o'clock, and you can join this in terms of a live stream. And many of you have done that and taken advantage of that. That is one of the deep, wise traditions of the Christian life, of the Christian church. Christians as individuals, it's the daily office is really one of the main ways I pray every single day. N.T. Wright, an Old Testament, New Testament scholar, church, said it's really the daily office is just bits of prayer, bits of the Bible, interspersed with prayers from the Bible. That also includes other texts from the Bible, all put together in one, and that's what it is. And folks have been praying that individually for 500 years and collectively for 500 years. And I'm just so delighted that in this time of COVID, we're able to say, hey, let's do this. We want to do this together. And we hope that that is a tradition that outlives the pandemic, and maybe we'll have either online or in-person daily prayer or midweek prayer in a new and significant way. Another thing that's going on, and as we think about social media, we've been trying to share the love of Granite Springs, what Q calls repeatedly their Granite Springs mojo, with people we love and people we care about, not in a salesman-y kind of negative way or a way that kind of twists people's arm, but in a way that opens up the gospel to them. And so we've taken little clips from our worship service, like with Aaron and Jelaine. There was a little clip of them singing, and who doesn't want to listen to Aaron and Jelaine sing? And we've sent that out there into social media land. And one of their clips had, last time I looked, more than 800 views. It's just a way to say, again, we're asking not only the question is not how can Granite Springs survive? The question is, how do we thrive, and how do we spread the good news of Jesus and get it out there? And that's one way. So we're just delighted to share that way. I don't know if you noticed, this past week, there was a wonderful prayer written by Matt and offered by Q, and then responsively with the rest of us. It was a prayer for bankers and for people involved in finance and for chief financial officers. I told the banker that Granite Springs does banking with, I said, hey, we're going to pray for bankers in COVID. And there was silence on the other end of the line. And he said, I've been in banking for decades, and I've never heard of anybody praying for a banker before. So just ways to reach out to people and connect with people. There'll be a link to that goes out with a weekly on Thursday, and so just look for that. So I just want to think about steps that are being taken. There's also steps. Matt, as some of you know, has started 2 groups that are meeting and talking about the Lord's Prayer. One of those is Wednesday, one of those is Thursday, and it's really deepening into these practices, digging deeper, being more mindful of these long-term practices of praying the Lord's Prayer. Some of us have been praying the Lord's Prayer since we were children. Some of us are still getting to know it, but none of us really understand the depths and the beauty of what Jesus said. And so this is a great opportunity to, again, enter into the life of the church in a way that will bring ongoing life and joy and the presence of God into your life. One of the big questions people have asked me, and we'll save time for a question and answer at the end, but one of the big questions people have on their mind is, well, when will the building open again? Well, there's only one person on the planet who knows when the building will open again, and that's God. I mean, really. But the rest of us are paying attention to that. As you can imagine, we have a worship planning meeting every single week where we talk about this and talk about getting ready for it. We have elders meetings every month where we talk about this, and then we meet via phone and texting. And so during the week, just keeping tabs on things where we talk about this. I have a group of pastors that I've met with for the past 15 years or so, and we talk about how to do this. and how to do this in our unique churches. And that's been a gift along the way as well. And I want you to hear those conversation partners. When it comes time to open the church, and it won't happen in the month of May, it'll be at least June before that happens, as we know from government officials like our governor and others who are providing guidance and counsel along the way. We know it'll at least be June before we open, but we'll do so in partnership with the best of Placer County Health Office. We want to make sure we're in conversation with them. We're learning from what they know and what they understand. We are hearing and getting advice from the governor's office. Like I said, these pastors that I've been connected with for 15 years, we're getting advice from each other. One of them is an Orthodox priest. Some of you know our wonderful friend, Father Chris Flosoris. And Father Chris, just a week ago, gave us and shared with us the protocols the Orthodox Church of Northern California is doing as a way to reopen. So we're gleaning from them. We're getting wisdom from our own church tradition, the Christian Reformed Church of North America. We're learning from them. And all these conversation partners, local elders and staff people, these regional group of pastors who understand our neighborhood, and these national leaders, we're in conversation with all of them about when to open. And we're very hopeful that it can happen in June, but we're not able to set a date yet at this point, but we're hopeful. We've even talked with movie theater professionals and with a Placer County board, one of the supervisors, as part of our conversation partners. So I just want you to hear there's a lot of conversation and a lot of learning that's going on. And the reason we're doing that is because we want you to be safe, and we want all of us to be safe. There's St. Augustine talked about churches being representatives of and fosterers of the common good in the community. And we for sure want to be those kinds of folks who are loving our neighbors by keeping them safe and keeping ourselves safe as well. Some of you have asked, when we get together, what will that look like? Well, that is also a wonderful question. And that's also an evolving question. New information about the virus comes out every single day. I just read something today about how air filters connect to people's health and how air purifiers in a room connect to people's health. And that was a line of conversation I had not seen until just about an hour ago. And it was pushed out by some wise Christian leaders for us to think about. But well, for sure, there'll be some new ways of doing things. What does it mean, for instance, to take communion and stay 6 feet apart? What does it mean to wear a mask at church and think about singing at the same time? What does it mean to have a thermometer scan our forehead quickly to make sure we are safe as we come in? What does it mean to have hand sanitizers in every room, touchless hand sanitizers in every room of the building? All of those things are being put in place. We're purchasing materials that keep us safe, cleaning solutions, like I said, hand sanitizers. And we may or may not do this, but someone said we could start a very low frequency FM channel. So those who are not able to join us inside the building might be able to join us in the parking lot and listen to an FM channel live Grant Springs. So I just want you to hear, we're learning from the best and the smartest people around. We're excited about the day we will open the building again. And that may come in stages. It may be for smaller meetings at the beginning. We'll just look for guidance from those we value and find wisdom from. Okay. Yeah, that's a bit to talk about already. I'm seeing the questions that are coming in. There's 2 questions that came in before the fireside chat here started, and I want to talk to them first, and then I'll field any questions that you all have. I wish I could see you live like you're seeing me. I wish I could hear your voice. I wish I could, someone wrote a book a while back called The Gospel and the Handshake. A handshake, that was a good idea, right? I wrote that as a title, and it doesn't seem like maybe the wisest title at this point, but I wish I could shake your hand and give you all a hug, and we could connect. But that day will come when we can be together, at least in a socially safe, distant way for a while. The first two questions are this: what will communion look like when we get together? Well, we don't exactly know. We know that one of the main things we'd like to do when we get together is to celebrate communion, and it's been 2 months with many churches around. Many, churches are going different ways. Some churches are offering communion online and just having people get their own bread and wine or juice, and there are many churches like ours which are thinking about almost a kind of fast from communion because we so value the being present with each other as part of communion. So we're still exploring that, how to do communion in a safe way. Um, and that will be part of our preparation over the next few weeks as we hopefully get soon to the place where we're going to get together. So one question was about communion and what does it mean? Will we be 6 feet apart? Again, we're learning from people from the Baptist tradition, how they celebrate communion, Orthodox, how they celebrate communion, and we're going to do it in a wise and helpful kind of way. A second question people have asked is this is from my friend Herman. He said, I've seen recent writings that describe the experiences being prompted by our extended time in self-shelter, shelter in place, specifically those that involve a growing reconnect to religion. Do we see that happening at Granite Springs and in the area through my colleagues in the neighborhood? Very, very much so. Great question, by the way, Herman. And that's one of the reasons I want to invite you to think about you can't be a greeter in person in the facility right now because the facility for the good of the common welfare is closed. But you can be a kind of greeter or a kind of inviter, a welcomer. You can show the beautiful gift of hospitality. And we'd invite everyone to do that. It might be as simple as pushing out a link that we send. It might be sharing our worship service with someone, but we invite you to do that. And Herman, you're exactly right. Whenever there's a crisis like this, whenever there's something that shows we are weaker than we think we are, whenever there's something that says or makes clear to us that we are dependent, not as independent as we thought, people turn to higher power, they turn to faith, they turn to Jesus himself. And so we are glad to see that, and we are glad to kind of encourage that as well. I wonder if there are any other questions. I'm kind of scanning, me being the high-tech guy, I'm kind of scanning the live chat here to see if there are any questions that people have. And you're sure welcome to share them now. One of the questions that people have asked me along the way is how is my family doing? And I'm glad to report that my kids are doing well. Some of you know that my daughter Rachel was in Spain. And so early on at the end of March, she made the difficult decision to come home to the United States, not because she doesn't like us, but because she was engaged in a year of learning in Spain. And she and I went into 14 days of quarantine together, and she came out the other side. We both did healthy, and we are just very glad to have her back. And now engaged in work, hopefully, in the next couple weeks. We're just excited about having her back. It's been a delight to be together as a family. Someone is asking about music camp and wondering if it will be postponed for this year. We do know music camp will look different than it's ever looked before. We don't expect there to be music camp in person, wandering the halls, but we are looking at alternatives. So once we have our alternatives set in place, once we know precisely what the plan is, and that's evolving over time, then we'll of course share that with all of you. And we just want you to know we're still planning on doing it in some form, but we don't know exactly what that form will be. So hold it on your calendar for now, and we'll get more word from Marissa about what exactly that will look like. Anybody else have a question out there that they'd like to know about. Someone asked me the other day what staff meetings are like at Granite Springs these days. And they're a bit like the worship services you see, when you see people from their different houses. And maybe you've heard of like Zoom fatigue or Skype fatigue. What I'm happy to report is, we all wish as a staff we could be together, but we are delighted that if we can't be together in person, we can at least be together. And we've had some great times of telling each other stories of what's happening and sharing life together despite what's going on. And it's been great to pray together and to be together and to celebrate time together. One development someone has asked me about is we had our good friend Q going off to the Army, remember? And so nobody can replace Q, but we made a hiring arrangement with a wonderful woman named Madison Talukian. And Maddie grew up in Roseville, right here. She went to my friend David George's church called Valley Springs Presbyterian Church, where she was baptized in high school. She went off to Wheaton College, and she just graduated from Princeton Seminary this spring. And we are delighted that she has agreed, as we announced before, to come be our youth pastor starting August 1. So you're going to love Maddie. And you met her if you go to the Holy Saturday service. You met her already then. She's going to be a wonderful gift to everyone. So look forward to Maddie coming as well. And her husband just got a job at Jesuit High School. So that's a wonderful gift as well. Friends, as we close here, and we're going to end promptly at 4:30, just because we promised people we would, and some folks have work they need to get back to and other commitments they need to get back to. But let me just say again how pleased I am for Granite Springs, for the healthy ways people as individuals and as a whole congregation are responding, for the servant-like ways, the Christ-like ways. And I encourage you, in a world of fear, I encourage you in a world of self-centeredness, fear makes us kind of curve back in on ourselves. I encourage you in such a world to look for ways to serve, to give the cup of cold water, to be the non-anxious presence in the room. I think about Psalm 23, and I wonder if we could end with Psalm 23 right now and say it together. I know we can't hear each other, and you may not have it memorized, but let's say the Psalm 23 the best way we can, okay? Friends, let's end with this. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely, goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Friends, our hope is that will be your reality. And our hope is that those old familiar words will get deep inside you and those you love, and they will be a gift to you. So friends, let's end this way. The peace of Christ be with you and also with you. God bless you, friends. We'll try to answer the questions you weren't able to get to today offline, and feel free to ask questions that you didn't get to post online. Feel free to offer those questions or make those questions to any individual staff person that can help you, okay? God bless you, friends. Take care. The Lord bless you and keep you. Amen.